It is said that women pursue men through a veil, but when Gu Zhi pursues Fu Yanshu, she is separated by several mountains. When reading, Gu Zhi said, "It's okay, as long as Fu Yanshu doesn't like others, he will be mine sooner or later." After Fu Yanshu fell in love, Gu Zhi said, "Even if we get married, we can still get divorced. What's a relationship? As long as our girlfriend becomes an ex-girlfriend, Fu Yanshu will still be mine." Later, Gu Zhi said, "There are millions of men in the world, and I don't lack another half." Fu Yanshu had a black face and stared at Gu Zhi. "Is it so easy to change your liking? If you don't hit the south wall, don't turn back. If you hit it, you'll turn around immediately." "I'm not stupid, how can I go down the black road to the end?" Road. Chapter 1. Effortless Students. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the entrance of a city's high school, two black-clad men with bodyguards standing on either side of the school gate are holding red banners. Early in the morning, when there were the most students, people came and went, and seeing this posture, I couldn't help but stop and observe. Seeing so many people watching from afar at the school gate, Fu Yanshu suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. Sure enough. Seeing the large characters on the banner, Fu Yanshu's eyes turned black. "You don't have to guess whose pen this is." Fu Yanshu quickly lowered his head and walked quickly behind the onlookers, trying to avoid Gu, who was haunted by him like a ghost. But who is Gu Zhi? She was the one who caught Fu Yanshu's attention, so as soon as he appeared, she easily captured his position. Gu Zhi came out from behind the bodyguard, holding a large bouquet of flowers in his hand. His smile on his mouth was exaggerated, as if it were already on his ear. She shouted loudly, "Fu Yanshu, welcome you." "Hello. What are you running for?" "I haven't finished speaking yet, why are you running for?" "Fu Yanshu." Fu Yan had long legs, and before Gu could catch up, he was nowhere to be seen. 15 minutes later, the principal's office. "On the first day when I transferred to school, why did you mess with me?" "Gu Zhi, what are you playing with?" The principal sat on the office chair and glared at Gu Zhi, his face turning black like the bottom of a pot. "Principal, I don't mean anything else, just welcome the new students." "Yes, welcome the new students." Gu Zhi lowered his head and didn't dare to take a breath. "If Mr. Gu hadn't made tremendous contributions to our school all along, and your score happened to be on the lowest score line of our school, you wouldn't have been able to transfer to our school halfway through. With just over a year left before the college entrance examination, since you have entered our school, you should study hard and focus solely on your studies. Don't just focus on what you don't have all day. A high school is a key high school in the city. Unlike the school you attended before, our school pursues a 100% admission rate, excellent teachers, and a pure school atmosphere. Behaviors that seriously affect academic performance, such as early love, are explicitly prohibited." The principal's endless lengthy speeches left Gu's mind empty. After an unknown amount of time, Gu Zhi glanced at the clock on the wall, raised his hand, and weakly said, "Principal, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the first class is almost over. Why didn't you say it earlier? Hurry up and go back to class." Although the principal strongly opposes Gu's unethical behavior, he still can't be absent from class. Gu Zhi turned around happily and ran away. Just as she was about to say that she had escaped, she thought too much. A warning, 1,000 words of self-criticism, to be handed over to your homeroom teacher before school ends today. On the podium, the history teacher tapped on the blackboard with his textbook and shouted to Gu, "Gu, I haven't seen your face in class for so long. The blackboard is here, what are you doing with Fu Yanshu?" The storm caused by Gu Zhi in the morning is still vivid in people's memory. When the teacher mentioned it, the class immediately became noisy. "Teacher, it was only with Fu Yanshu that Gu Zhi came to our school. The two of them are sitting so close, so Gu Zhi has no intention of attending class." That's right, Gu Zhi also held a welcome ceremony for Fu Yanshu in the morning, and the battle was quite intense. I also sent flowers, which scared Fu Yanshu away. Every word you say to everyone, the class instantly becomes extremely lively. The history teacher has been teaching for more than 20 years and is also an extremely serious scholar. Seeing this situation, his face turned black. He once again used his textbook to forcefully tap on the blackboard and said in a deep voice, "What are you all shouting about? You are all in the second semester of your sophomore year, and none of you want to take the college entrance examination, right? Gu Zhi, stand up." Even though Gu Zhi was engrossed in reading Fu Yanshu, she was not unaware of the noise, so as soon as the teacher called her, she immediately stood up. The three principles and 8 eyes are the core of the path to university. What does the 8 eyes refer to? Gu Zhi's eyes lit up. She had read this question in extracurricular books and knew it. Grasping things, achieving knowledge, sincerity, rectifying the mind, cultivating oneself, governing the family, governing the country, and pacifying the world. The content of the Book of Songs includes wind, elegance, and praise. Can you explain what elegance is? Coincidentally, she also knows this question. The elegant poems in the Book of Songs are divided into Xiaoya and Daya, including 105 pieces, all of which are music for banquets and suburban temples. After asking Gu Zhi several questions in a row, and Gu Zhi answered correctly, even if the history teacher was dissatisfied, it was not easy to be difficult again. Sit down. Hold your head straight and listen attentively. Fu Yanshu glanced over Gu Zhi at the end of his eyes, and the corner of his mouth slightly raised. Gu is a scumbag, but he is a hard-working scumbag. After sitting down, Gu Zhi dared not continue to act recklessly. After all, she still carried 1,000-word self-criticism letter on her body. If she had another one, she would have died today. Finally, after finishing school, as soon as Fu Yanshu got up, Gu Zhi followed suit and sent out an invitation with a smile on his face. Fu Yanshu, so coincidentally, you're going to the same school again. Let's go home together. Have you finished writing your review letter? With a sentence from Fu Yanshu, the smile on Gu Zhi's face disappeared visible to the naked eye. A malicious reason for rejection. After Fu Yanshu left, Gu Zhi took a pen and began to write vigorously. If it weren't for her spending the whole day reading Fu Yan's book, she would have already written this 1,000-word self-reflection. It's so hard to squeeze into the school where Fu Yanshu studied, and it's frustrating to start on the first day. Gu Zhi, Song Xian, did your elementary school teacher not teach you pinyin? Yes, is it, I, or you, big brother? Gu Zhi didn't even lift her head, as she knew who it was just by hearing this nickname. Song Xian casually cleared the clutter on Gu Zhi's table and sat down with a smirk on his face. It's okay. I've been calling over for so many years, so it's unnecessary to make any further changes. Finally, I can be classmates again. Celebrate tonight. Sit far away, your buttocks are pressing down on my review letter. Gu Zhi poked Song Xian's buttocks with the tip of his pen, without even lifting his head, and continued to write vigorously. Song Xian jumped up and covered his buttocks in dissatisfaction, saying, "At least I am also your childhood sweetheart. Did you treat your childhood sweetheart like this? Can my childhood sweetheart write me a self-criticism? Can my childhood sweetheart ask the principal to retract that warning and not report it to my old man? No, you can't. This kind of childhood sweetheart who only knows how to make fun of her deeply despised." After middle school, we went our separate ways and finally reunited after a long separation. Did you actually poke my butt with a pen? Gu Zhi, do you have a heart? Song Xian snatched the pen from Gu Zhi's hand and then held her face, tears streaming down his face, reflecting how heartbroken he was. You live next door to my house, and the balcony of our room is still connected. Where did you get so many scenes? Have you seen each other again after a long absence? You're all crazy. Gu Zhi didn't buy it, took away Song Xian's hand holding her face, and wrote with a different pen. If it weren't for the fact that the two had known each other for over a decade, Gu would have almost believed him. What a great acting skill. Tears fall in 1 second. Song Sion wiped away the tears on his face, but still looked aggrieved. Before, we went to the same school and saw each other day and night. Later, besides sleeping, how could I see you? Don't make me sound like I'm sleeping with you at night. If Fu Yanshu hears about it, he'll be jealous. Gu Zhi calculated that the word count was about 1,000, then stopped writing and picked up his self-criticism letter as he walked towards the teacher's office. Chapter 2. The Pain of Supplementary Education. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the English exam paper came down, Gu Zhi looked at the scores above and his soul was lost. 59 points. Hee hee. 59 points. There was a 60.70 centimeters corridor between Fu Yanshu and Gu Zhi, but unfortunately, he was tall. Even if he didn't want to see Gu Zhi's score, he still saw it when he turned his head. Haha. Upon hearing this smile, Gu Zhi's soul instantly returned to its original position, and his eyes lit up as he looked at Fu Yanshu. Hua Qi said, "Fu Yanshu, you smiled at me." Fu Yanshu ignored her and habitually grabbed a book while reading. He was mocking. Song Sion happened to come over and shattered Gu Zhi's imagination with just one sentence. Isn't mockery just a smile? You'll have to do something. Gu Zhi glared at Song Sion in annoyance, then hid the exam paper and turned to Fu Yanshu with a pleasing smile. Fu Yanshu, how many points did you score? Fu Yanshu seemed to have never heard of it before, but Qi Ming, who was sitting in front of him, retorted, Gu Zhi, isn't this an extra question for you? Our class's Fu Shueba must have received a perfect score. That's right. I've known Fu Yanshu for so long, and he hasn't missed anything. He can score as many points as he can. Before Gu Zhi could finish flattering him, Fu Yanshu said coldly. 98, wrong multiple choice question. The air was filled with an awkward atmosphere, surrounded by a deathly tranquility. Qi Ming sat awkwardly, unsure of what to say for a moment. Gu Zhi first reacted, got up, and comforted Fu Yanshu by patting his back twice. Haha. When people make mistakes, horses make mistakes. Even academic elites are human, and it's normal to make mistakes. Yu Guangzhong saw a large black area where Fu Yanshu had been photographed by her, making Gu Zhi numb. Just now, there was a pen leaking ink, and she didn't pay attention, so she touched it. Just as she was about to wash it, she ran into the test paper. She was delayed because she wanted to know her grades too much, but when the grades came down, she just forgot about it. Gu Zhi took a cold breath and placed his hands behind him, directly smearing ink onto his dark school uniform dress. Then, he bared his teeth and looked at the ink behind Fu Yanshu with a puzzled expression. Just as she was hesitating about how to tell Fu Yanshu, Song Sion found the exam paper she had just hidden from somewhere and was still holding it, howling in agony. 59 points. NB, Gu Zhu. Gu Yixia was distracted and rushed toward Song Sion. However, Song Sion took advantage of his height and pressed his head against Gu Zhi's head, lifting the test paper above his head and commenting on Gu Zhi's mistakes. This question should have been answered with a C even when you close your eyes, pig. Are you not even reviewing the question? And how can such a simple question be wrong? We're half a pound, how much better can you be than me? Gu Zhi grabbed in the air with both hands, but didn't catch anything. One more point for you, 60. Song Sion looked proud. Gu Zhi was stunned for a second and said with extreme displeasure, silence. Bad luck. Fu Yanshu stood up, took the exam paper from Song Sion's hand, and stuffed it into his review hand. It's really noisy, he said. Fu Yanshu, can't you bear to see me being bullied by villains before helping me? You're so kind. Gu Yi pushed Song Sion away and looked at Fu Yanshu with red eyes. Before Fu Yanshu, no matter how much she made a fuss, she didn't react, and now she's starting to take care of her. Well, this is a heartbeat signal. Song Xian silently watched Gu Zhi's foolish behavior and seriously thought about what to eat to cure his love brain. I don't have it, don't misunderstand, Fu Yanshu sighed, unsure how Gu could always come up with so many things he didn't have. We've known each other for so many years, and I understand what you mean, said Gu with another palm. Upon discovering Gu Zhi's dirty hand, Fu Yanshu took a big step back. I wanted to avoid trouble, but to my surprise, I ran into Lin Shuangshuang who came in with watercolor paint. Sorry, I didn't mean it. Lin Shuangshuang looked apologetically at the paint behind Fu Yanshu, but didn't expect Fu Yanshu to collide so suddenly. She couldn't avoid it for a moment. Fu Yanshu tugged at his clothes, looked behind his eyes, and frowned. Faced with Lin Shuangshuang, he looked indifferent and gentle. I bumped into you, I should apologize. There are still 3 classes to finish, and your clothes are so dirty that you can't wear them. How about I ask the teacher? No need, I have clothes. Gu Zhi abruptly interrupted Lin Shuangshuang's words, flipped out a new set of sportswear from the drawer, and handed it to Fu Yanshu as if offering a treasure. The Academic Affairs Office sent the wrong code, and I wanted to exchange it, but now it happens to be in use. Sports clothes are of the same style for men and women, with only different sizes, so they can be worn by Fu Yanshu. After hesitating for a moment, Fu Yanshu took it and said, I'll pay you back for the school uniform tomorrow. No need. I just wanted to tell you that I dirted the back of your clothes, Gu Zhi said with embarrassment as he reached out his hand. I was also responsible, so I'll compensate you. Lin Shuangshuang said, I was also at fault. You and I will each pay half. Fu Yanshu also agreed, I was also at fault, please give me another share. The onlookers next to. Do you need 3 people to compensate together for clothes worth over 100 yuan? Gu Zhi, don't go to sleep. Ah, are you going to be late for school? Gu Zhi bounced out of bed like a zombie and ran to the wardrobe, picking up his school uniform. He couldn't forget to mutter, what day is it today? Is there any physical education class? The teacher seems to be saying he's going to bring a sports uniform, and he's going to raise the flag. Which school uniform should he wear? Are you really overslept? It's already summer vacation now. Watching Gu Zhi so busy, the nanny was a bit dumbfounded. Gu Zhi's hand paused, and his eyes turned back with a dull expression. Summer. Summer vacation. Yeah, starting today, the first day of summer vacation. Yeah. How did I forget? I just brought back everything from school yesterday. I don't have to go to school, I can still sleep. Thinking of this, Gu Zhila lazily lay back in bed. Just as she was about to take a nap, the nanny pulled her up again. Don't sleep. Mr. Gu has hired an English tutor for you, and the tutor will come in half an hour. Tutor. Gu Zhi's mind suddenly came up with yesterday's transaction with the old man. She failed several tests this semester, which seriously lowered the average score of the class. Before the summer vacation, the homeroom teacher personally came to do a home visit. After the homeroom teacher left, the old man warned her that if she failed the test again in her 3rd year of high school, she would have to go abroad to study according to the old man's wishes after the college entrance examination and not appeal. Based on the principle of not enduring the hardships of learning, one must endure the hardships of life. She resolutely chose to endure the hardships of studying. After all, her family has money, and the hardships of life are definitely unbearable. As the saying goes, life should not be too smooth sailing, otherwise it will be struck by thunder and lightning, so she must endure hardship, the harder the better. Just. The hardship of studying is too delicious, isn't it, Gu Zhi? Why don't you wipe your saliva first? Fu Yanshu had a dark expression on his face and casually took out a piece of paper to stuff into Gu Zhi's hand. Gu Zhi took the tissue and wiped the corners of his mouth with coordination before revealing his big white teeth and saying, Fu Yanshu, why are you being a tutor? Lack of money. Fu Yanshu was also honest. Chapter 3. Encounter. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The next day, Gu got up early and tossed around in the room for a long time before finally choosing a blue chiffon dress with satisfaction. A gal has regulations that all students on campus must wear school uniforms, so her private uniform is almost dust-free and hasn't been worn many times. After finally waiting until Saturday and Sunday, besides being with Song Sion, she still had no desire to dress up. It is said that a woman's appearance is pleasing to others, and she is doing it for Fu Yanshu to have plastic surgery. Now there is a great opportunity to showcase herself before Fu Yan writes. She needs to wear all those dustproof clothes at once, with the goal of introducing Fu Yan's book. While preparing the materials for today's tutoring in the study downstairs, Gu suddenly remembered something and ran to the kitchen. Aunt Hua Hua, do you remember not adding scallions to the breakfast I asked you to cook yesterday? Yesterday, Fu Yanshu said that she had something to attend to today and would come early to tutoring her. Fu Yanshu came so early that she probably didn't have time for breakfast. School doesn't end at noon, everyone eats in the cafeteria. However, for such a long time, she did not find any food that Fu Yanshu liked or disliked. It was just that Fu Yanshu didn't like the dishes with onions, so she guessed that he didn't like onions. I remember. You said it 4 times yesterday, how can I forget? The sound of opening the door came from the living room, and Gu ran out quickly. It's Fu Yanshu here. He was wearing a white T-shirt and jeans, with the black canvas bag he used for school on his back. Despite his simple yet tasteless attire, it was surprisingly eye-catching on Fu Yanshu's body. Fu Yanshu, have you had breakfast yet? No, Gu Zhi said, just as he was about to speak. Fu Yanshu added, but I bought it. What did you buy? Gu Zhi kept his mouth wide open and asked without giving up, bread. Fu Yanshu raised the plastic bag in his hand. Bread. Gu Zhi was stunned for 2 seconds, then looked pitifully at Fu Yanshu and reached out. Coincidentally, I didn't have breakfast either. Can you give me your bread? Fu Yanshu glanced at a large breakfast table not far away on the dining table, raised his eyebrows, and pointed, you can eat those. There's no bread there. Fu Yanshu, I want to eat bread today. If I can't eat it, I probably won't have the energy to study. If I don't have the energy to study, you'll have to struggle teaching. Before Gu could finish speaking, Fu Yanshu's bread had already hung on her finger. Come in after finishing your meal. Gu turned around and saw the silhouette of Fu Yanshu walking into the study, leaving her speechless. She had originally thought that Fu Yanshu was now in the prime of growing her body, and with such a tall stature, how could she eat a loaf of bread? As long as she eats Fu Yanshu's bread, Fu Yanshu has to eat her carefully prepared breakfast. However, Fu Yanshu does not follow common sense and allows her to eat even if she doesn't eat it herself. Thinking of this, Gu Zhi's eyes suddenly lit up again. Fu Yanshu would rather starve himself than give her his only breakfast. What does this mean? On behalf of Fu Yanshu, seeing her is more important than himself. If Fu Yanshu cares about her so much, then he must like her. After half a meeting, Gu Zhi came in with a plate of breakfast and placed it on the desk. With a serious expression on his face, he said, experts say that breakfast is the beginning of a day's energy source. People who don't eat breakfast for a long time tend to have dull brains. You are someone who wants to take an A exam, and your brain cannot become dull because of me. Come on, eat. Because of you. Fu Yanshu frowned, not to mention whether that expert was right or not. Why did he become stupid because of Gu Zhi? Even if you don't eat it yourself, you should give it to me. Fu Yanshu, you care about me. No, you like me. Gu Zhi, why don't you spit out the bread? Fu Yanshu closed his eyes suffocated, not expecting that the one who opened the beautiful morning would be speechless to Gu Zhi. He knew he couldn't be too kind to Gu. This guy can come up with a big drama with just a little brainpower. Gu Zhi pretended not to hear and enthusiastically displayed the food she brought in. I don't know what you like to eat, so I brought some for you. It was a bit too much, and if you can't eat or don't like it, that's all. If you keep nagging like this, today's tutoring time should be over. He still has to go to work later, so he really doesn't have time to play around with Gu. I can do my homework first, and you can eat next to me. If I have any questions, I will ask you again. Without giving Fu Yanshu a chance to refuse, Gu Zhi directly moved the plate to Fu Yanshu's desk and took out the homework to do it himself. Fu Yanshu also had a rough idea of Gu Zhi's temperament, so he didn't refuse again this time. Just looking at the plate in front of him, he has been living in bamboo again. With so much, is Gu Zhi going to feed pigs? Half an hour later, Fu Yanshu was checking Gu Zhi's homework. Gu Zhi sat on the side, holding his forehead with one hand and curiously asked, Fu Yanshu, aren't you picky eaters? She is picky about food. I don't eat fatty meat, vegetables, and fruits. I only love spicy food for sweetness, sourness, bitterness, and spiciness. In the words of Song Sion, she is a mischievous child raised in a good environment. If she gets hungry, she may even be able to eat feces. In places like orphanages, picky eaters can only go hungry. Fu Yanshu carefully reviewed Gu Zhi's homework. His tone was flat, as if he was just talking about something very ordinary. After listening to Fu Yanshu's words, Gu Zhi couldn't help but feel a slight tug of pain in his heart. She has a general understanding of Fu Yanshu's background. She knows that Fu Yanshu lived in an orphanage before the age of 13 and was later adopted by his current family. The couple who adopted Fu Yanshu couldn't have children, so they only had one child at home, Fu Yanshu. In theory, families that can adopt children should not be too poor, but last time she asked Fu Yanshu why he did tutoring, Fu Yanshu said he was short of money. Previously, she had heard from other classmates that Fu Yanshu had already started working in the second year of junior high school. If all of these are true, could it be that the family who adopted Fu Yanshu was not kind to him or treated him harshly? Gu Zhi suddenly grabbed Fu Yanshu's wrist with both hands and said more sincerely than she swore to the old man, Fu Yanshu, I will be very good to you in the future. Fu Yanshu turned his head stiffly and looked at Gu Zhi's inexplicably serious expression, frowning slightly. Why are you suddenly going crazy? Don't worry. Anyway, remember that I will always be by your side and treat you very well, even better than anyone else in the world. Gu Zhi also knew that at her age, making promises was not very credible, but she still wanted to tell Fu Yanshu that she truly liked him and liked him more than anyone else in the world. Perhaps it was Gu Zhi's sudden and serious attention that startled Fu Yanshu. He looked at Gu Zhi for a while in a daze before returning to his senses slightly. He twisted Gu Zhi's hand and sneered, you can't be by my side all the time because you can't get into a university. Fu Yanshu's words were like a thunderbolt that struck Gu Zhi's head, instantly pulling her back to the real world. What if I could get into a university? Gu Zhi didn't know what was going on today, so he challenged himself. If I can even do the impossible thing of getting into an A university, can you give me a chance to try to like me? Fu Yanshu instinctively wanted to refute a sentence that Gu Zhi couldn't do, and when it touched upon Gu Zhi's unprecedented sincerity, his words came to a halt. Chapter 4. Is copying an assignment okay? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking through the autumn water, when Gu Zhi finally returned, Song Sion began to tease, can you go to such a close place for so long? Are you still going up the tree to pick coconuts? Eat grass. Gu Zhi picked a piece of lettuce and stuffed it into Song Sion's mouth, biting his chopsticks with a displeased expression on his face. Song Sion chewed it twice, but also felt that eating lettuce alone was not delicious, so he vomited it again. With Gu Zhi's angry expression on his face, he couldn't help but tease her, not happy. Let's hear it and make my brother happy. As Song Sion spoke, he put the grilled meat into a bowl and put new things on a baking tray to grill. Gu Zhi took a big sip of mango milk from a cup, thinking about Fu Yanshu, but didn't notice that the meat in the bowl was freshly baked. She took a piece and put it in her mouth, causing her to roll twice in her mouth before spitting it out. She stuck out her tongue and took another big sip from the cup, holding it in her mouth. Her cheeks bulged like a hamster. Song Sion reached out and turned his hand to grab a wet towel. He rudely wiped Gu Zhi's mouth twice and concluded, "It's Fu Yanshu again." Fu Yanshu is the most important person who can make Gu care about and care about. I've been chasing Fu Yanshu for so long, even if it's made of stone, it should be covered with heat by me. Gu Zhi thought about it and still felt deeply hurt. I thought that the friendly interaction over the past few days would make Fu Yanshu slightly change his view of her, no longer thinking that she was a simple-minded wealthy second generation. However, based on the situation just now, she was still overthinking. Seeing that there was meat in Song Sion's bowl that had cooled down, Gu Zhi decided to pick it up and eat it from Song Sion's bowl. Song Sion didn't take a glance and half a bowl of meat was picked up by Gu Zhi. He curled his mouth and roasted, "You are really jealous of Fu Yanshu. That's because Fu Yanshu is worth it. Haha. People like Fu Yanshu who are intelligent in their minds look down on fools the most, and you happen to be." Gu Zhi's eyes were full of murderous intent, and he made Song Sion swallow the words "fool" back into his stomach and changed his mouth forcefully. "Anyway, Fu Yanshu won't like you. Then I'll wait until he likes me," Gu Zhi said shamelessly. Anyway, Fu Yanshu doesn't have anyone she likes. As long as she can afford to wait, maybe Fu Yanshu will be hers. Song Sion looked at Gu Zhi's confident expression and let out a disgusted sigh, still unable to understand. Outside the restaurant, Fu Yanshu lowered his head and glanced at the phone in his hand, then turned around with an inexplicable expression and left. Gu Zhi discovered that her phone had been leaking at the milk tea shop for almost half an hour. She ran quickly, hoping to see Fu Yanshu again. Unexpectedly, Fu Yanshu had already finished work, and it was the manager of the milk tea shop who returned her phone. Knowing that Gu Zhi was Fu Yanshu's classmate, the store manager couldn't help but tease her, "Little student, you walk quite fast. Fu Yanshu's long legs can't even catch up with you." Gu Yi's face was bewildered, not quite understanding what the store manager was saying. The store manager explained, "As soon as you left, Fu Yanshu chased after you, but he said he didn't see you." Gu Zhi was taken aback again. She didn't walk too fast at the time, so why couldn't Fu Yanshu catch up with her? Due to the fact that the person involved was not here, Gu Zhi smiled awkwardly and thanked the store manager before leaving. Fu Yanshu was tidying up his backpack when Gu Zhi accidentally saw the thick exercise book in his bag. He couldn't help but praise him, "You really deserve to be a top student. I have so much homework to do, and you still have time to do mock exams." Upon hearing this, Fu Yanshu looked at it like reading some mutated creature and said, "You didn't write it." Gu Zhi frowned, his face inexplicably serious. "Didn't you buy your own extracurricular books?" Before the holiday, the class monitor issued one book per person. Gu Zhi suddenly felt thunderous and squatted on the ground, pouring out all the things in his backpack. "Everyone has one book, why am I, Gu Zhiliang twisted her fingers around the simulation exam question that was thicker than her face, and stood up stiffly with an expression that looked even better than the paint on the palette. Why hasn't she seen such a big book before? Later, school was about to start, but you didn't do a single question, that's great." Fu Yanshu chuckled twice and continued to pack his backpack. Gu Zhi threw the exercise book onto the table and grabbed Fu Yanshu's arm with both hands. With a pleasing smile on his face, he asked, "Is it okay to copy an assignment?" "No way. After so many years of love, even copying homework is not enough." Gu Zhi widened his eyes exaggeratedly, completely unable to believe it. "Didn't your kindergarten teacher tell you? Do your own things." Fu Yanshu tapped Gu Zhi's exercise book with his index finger and zipped up his backpack. Fu Yanshu not only zippered his backpack, but also had a caring heart. I talk to you about emotions, you talk to me about education. Fu Yanshu, don't you even have a heart? Gu Zhi left Fu Yanshu, holding her heart and propping her hand on the table, almost squeezing out a few tears to prove her current heartbreak. Fu Yanshu was not affected at all. No. Gu Zhi's heart was blocked, but he still didn't give up. I didn't mean it, I just didn't know. Fu Yanshu, school is about to start the day after tomorrow, and I can't finish writing such a large exercise book without eating, drinking, or sleeping. As the saying goes, saving a person's life is better than building a level 7 pagoda. You can't see death without saving me. She definitely remembers to check her homework on weekdays, but it's rare for her to spend time with Fu Yanshu this summer. Being too happy makes her careless. Due to her grades, the homeroom teacher already had some objections to her. If she finds out about her unfinished homework, she will definitely have to sue the old man. Recently, it has been difficult to make the old man feel more at ease with her. If he is complained about by the class teacher again, the old man should be angry again. You can forget your homework, Gu Zhi. Why don't you just forget to eat your food? I won't have dinner today or tomorrow. Can you copy my homework for me? Gu Zhi was surprised and didn't understand what kind of hobby Fu Yanshu had. But it's not impossible to think about it, but if you don't eat for 2 days, you won't starve to death, right? Fu Yan was so angry that he couldn't speak. Gu's divine-level understanding ability was truly admirable. You can't copy even if you don't eat this year. Gu Zhi lay on the desk with a mournful face, banging his head repeatedly, and began to morally kidnap Fu Yanshu. In ancient times, there was a Buddha who pitted sentient beings by cutting flesh and feeding eagles. Now, Fu Yanshu has placed me in water and fire without saving me. If one day I die in another place, I hope Fu Yanshu does not have any sense of guilt, because he was able to save my birthday. Tutoring is not easy, Fu Yanshu sighed. After half a meeting, Fu Yanshu still took out his exercise book and placed it on the desk. Without a soul, he said, this is the only time, let's not do it again. Upon hearing this, Gu Zhi had another expression, completely devoid of the grief and despair he had just experienced. As if afraid of Fu Yanshu's sudden reversal, she took the exercise book and hugged it in her arms, then ran to the corner to copy it. Gu Zhi, we cannot simply copy everything, we need to make corrections. I have experience with this, and with my intelligence, I can't do it all right. Fu Yanshu is silent. Hehe, you really have experience. In the blink of an eye, it's another new semester. Chapter 5. National Day Small and Long Holiday. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Pig, where is Uncle Lu's car? Where are you going? Halfway through, Song Sion quickly grabbed Gu Zhi's ponytail and pulled him back. It hurts so much, let go. Gu Zhi patted Song Sion's hand and couldn't hold his breath. Fu Yanshu is sick, I'll go send him study materials. But he didn't come for a whole day. When he goes to school, he can make up for his own progress. No way. We're all in our 3rd year of high school, and not going to school for a whole day has a huge impact on our studies. Moreover, tomorrow is still Saturday. I need to send the study materials to Fu Yanshu as soon as possible, otherwise it will slow down his learning progress. Gu Zhi said grandly. It sounds so nice, but I didn't want to see Fu Yanshu. Song Sion didn't expose her either. Do you know where the calligrapher Fu Yan is? Of course I know, I asked the homeroom teacher. The delivery of materials was supposed to be done by the class monitor, but she snatched it over. Song Sion thought for a moment, I'll accompany you. Gu Zhi refused and pushed Song Sion's back, saying, Uncle Lu is waiting for you. You go back first. Besides, Fu Yan's calligrapher is not far either. I'll walk for 10 minutes. Be careful on the way, call me if you have anything to do. Song Xian saw Gu Zhi's caution and pursed his lips without saying anything more. Okay. Gu Zhi responded and took off his backpack, putting it in Song Xian's hand. Please help me carry my backpack back, goodbye. Gu Zhi waved his hand and left with the study materials given to Fu Yanshu. Number 17, Building 1. Oh, I found it. Gu Zhi entered the elevator and pressed the floor of Fu Yan bookseller. There are 2 households on the first floor here. Gu Zhi looked at the number at the entrance and confirmed repeatedly that he had not made a mistake before tidying up his appearance, taking a deep breath, and ringing the bell. Here we go. The person who answered the door was a female voice, which sounded soft and gentle, giving people a warm feeling. The door opened and she was a woman in her 30s. As expected by Gu, her appearance is intellectual and gentle, looking a bit like a high-educated person with a faint scholarly aura. Hello auntie, I am Gu Zhi, a classmate of Fu Yanshu, who came to deliver learning materials to Fu Yanshu. Gu Zhi politely bowed slightly and then raised the book in his hand. Gu, come in quickly. As soon as Fu Yanshu's foster mother heard her classmate, she smiled faintly and moved her steps to let Gu in. Gu nodded and changed his home shoes at the door before entering the house. What catches the eye is a framed calligraphy painting, which reads, Tranquility and Farsightedness. Gu Zhi doesn't quite understand calligraphy, but the font looks vigorous and powerful, giving people a feeling of peace of mind. Gu Zhi speculates that this calligraphy piece should be written very well. After entering the living room, Gu Zhi placed his study materials on the coffee table and sat upright on the fabric sofa, his eyes agile as he surveyed the room. The decorations in the living room exude an elegant atmosphere, and even the cabinets separating the living room and dining room are a large floor-to-ceiling bookshelf. The entire room is filled with a strong aroma of books. As Gu Zhi guessed, the family that adopted Fu Yanshu did indeed come from a good family background. But she had some doubts. Fu Yanshu's foster mother didn't look like the kind of malicious foster mother who would treat people harshly. Why did Fu Yanshu keep working? Before Gu Zhi could think much, Fu Yanshu's foster mother came out. She brought a cup of tea in front of Gu Zhi, with a gentle smile still on her face. Thank you, auntie. Gu Zhi quickly stood up and thanked before sitting down again. Yanshu took cold medicine at noon and hasn't woken up yet. I'll go wake him up. Just as Fu Yanshu's foster mother was about to get up, Gu Zhi quickly said, No need, auntie. I'm just here to send Fu Yanshu some study materials without waking him up. Fu Yanshu's foster mother responded before giving up. She curiously looked at Gu Zhi and said, Are you a classmate who only met after Yanshu reached a high school? Gu was a bit confused as to why Fu Yanshu's foster mother asked so. She nodded and shook again, I've been classmates with Fu Yanshu for several years. Fu Yanshu's foster mother smiled and said, I heard from Yanshu before that there was a female classmate who had been with him from junior high school until high school. Just now, I heard your name and it sounded familiar to me, and I don't know if you have mistaken someone. You didn't admit it wrong, it was. It was me. Gu Zhi scratched his head with embarrassment, his face slightly flushed, and he didn't expect Fu Yanshu to mention her. Although Yanshu has a good personality, he is not very talkative. I'm afraid he won't make friends when he arrives at the new school. With you around, he should be happy. Fu Yanshu is quite good at school. He is very good at reading, and he is also a good person. His teachers and classmates all like him. Speaking of Fu Yanshu, Gu Zhi's eyes lit up. He is like a piece of shining gold, always shining wherever he goes. He is the best Fu Yanshu in the world. Upon hearing this, Fu Yanshu's foster mother immediately felt a lot of peace of mind. She turned her head to look at the closed door, and a hint of heartache flashed in her eyes. Yanshu's childhood experiences made him too independent. He didn't want to cause us trouble, and many times I didn't know how to care for him. Speaking of which, as a mother, I should have also failed. How could my own child not know how to love him? Gu suddenly understood why Fu Yanshu worked so hard to make money. The growth process of Fu Yanshu is probably lacking in love. So when faced with the sudden love from his foster parents, he was at a loss and even felt very heavy. He was afraid of no return and could only do his best to minimize the trouble he brought them. However, Fu Yanshu did not know that those who loved him were not afraid of his troubles, and even hoped that he could get into trouble. No way. Fu Yanshu knows in his heart that he must also really like this family. Looking at the light in Gu's eyes, Fu Yanshu's foster mother paused and chuckled lightly. Gu looks like my family's banquet book very much. Gu nodded and said with certainty, I really like Fu Yanshu. The Fu Yanshu behind the door lowered his head slightly, and the corners of his mouth seemed to be slightly raised. Fool, as if she knew him well. Early on Monday morning, when Fu Yanshu came in, Gu happily leaned in. Seeing him wearing a mask on his face, Gu couldn't help but worry. Have you not recovered from your cold yet? No, it's almost done. It's just a slight cough, afraid of infecting other classmates. This is cold tea. Gu Zhi put the thermos in his hand on Fu Yan's desk and said, Aunt Hua cooked it. She said it's good for the cold. Thank you. Perhaps in the past, Fu Yanshu always refused to accept her things, so Gu came casually and said, it's just a bottle of cold tea. It won't hurt if you accept it. If you feel embarrassed. Fu Yanshu, you didn't refuse me. Well, I have accepted it. You finally see my heart for you. You should take it back. Fu Yanshu just picked up the thermos and ran away with oil on his feet. Song Xian looked at the thermos on Fu Yan's desk in horror, frowning and saying, Pig, the bottle of cold tea you cooked. Are you really not afraid to drink Fu Yan's book to death? Chapter 6. Sincerity and Great Adventure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Song Xian and his team had enough fun and the meat on the barbecue stove was almost done. The charcoal turns red, making the meat and fat on the net sizzle, and the air is filled with the tempting aroma of meat. After playing for so long, everyone's stomachs were already hungry. Now, smelling the aroma of grilled meat, they are even more hungry. How fragrant. Pig, which ones are you baking? I can easily prevent lightning. Before Gu Zhi could even put on a smile, he listened to the latter half of Song Xian's sentence and instantly threw a fork. Song Xian seemed to have anticipated it earlier, and with a jump, he hid behind Lin Shi. I baked everything, don't eat it. No wonder it's all the taste of dark cuisine. Gu Zhi, UNB. Gu Zhi took off his slippers, picked them up, and flew towards Song Xian. Hey, I can't hit it. Song Xian easily dodged and didn't forget to turn back and make a smirk at Gu Zhi with pride. Song Xian, you're doomed. Gu Zhi instantly burned the fire to the top of his head, took off his other slipper and threw it in Song Xian's face. Song Xian ran even further. The two of them chased after each other, like a cat encountering a dog, playing happily on the beach. Looking at the two people who were, close and in love, not far away, Lin Shi couldn't help but sigh. Song Xian and Gu Zhi have such a good relationship. Why don't I have a childhood sweetheart like Gu Zhi? You can't envy me anymore. Gu Zhi's family is so wealthy, you have to be as wealthy as her to live next door. Qi Ming leaned on Lin Shi's shoulder, also envious. Rich people are really nice, at least they have 90% less worries than ordinary people. That's right, maybe our homestay isn't as big as Gu Zhi's house yet. Hey, Fu Yanshu, aren't you taking care of Gu Zhi's family during the summer vacation? Where's Fu Yanshu? I was just here. Lin Shuangshuang pointed to his empty side, shrugged, and turned his head to find that Shen Running was also missing. Where is Running? He kept saying he was hungry. I'm probably going to assassinate Fu Yanshu, Situ Ji thought with a wide-open mind. After all, since Fu Yanshu transferred to another school, he has been putting pressure on Shen Running. Can you not be angry that the once talented and beautiful top student suddenly becomes the second in 10,000 years? No, no, no. I guess Shen Running went to confess his feelings to Fu Yanshu. Lin Shi raised her eyebrows with a sly expression. How to say this? A group of people immediately gathered around, also smelling the smell of gossip. I didn't invite Shen Running this time, but when she heard that Fu Yanshu would come, she told me she wanted to come together, and I naturally couldn't refuse. But it was also quite good. Besides providing accommodation, she helped me arrange everything else for this event. Lin Xuangshuang was surprised and said, Shen Running likes Fu Yanshu. I didn't see it. Shen Running and Fu Yanshu are the same kind of person, beautiful and intelligent. She thought the two should appreciate each other, but she didn't expect Shen Running to hide such thoughts. Well, it's because she's ignorant and ignorant. Fu Yanshu has beauty and talent, and there are many people who like him in school. The school flower is also a human, so why is it strange to like Fu Yanshu? Qi Ming took it for granted. If he is not a man, he must have thoughts about Fu Yanshu. Yes, smart people should be together, so as not to think we ordinary people are stupid. Situji viciously bit into the roasted chicken wings, except for Situji, everyone retreated to the side and said in unison, "It's you who's stupid, don't pull us in." Situji. Shen Running found Fu Yanshu by the seaside not far from the homestay. He sat on a beach chair, looking at the sea with an indifferent expression, not knowing what he was thinking. Shen Wulining looked around as there was no one around, took a deep breath, and walked over. Everyone is grilling meat. You've been busy all afternoon, aren't you hungry? Fu Yanshu regained his senses and saw that Shen Running was stunned for a moment. He smiled faintly and said, I ate a lot while you were playing, I was full. Shen Running nodded and sat down on the beach chair next to Fu Yanshu, nervously gripping the hem of her skirt. Fu Yanshu, do you have any other ideas besides taking the A college entrance exam? Fu Yanshu frowned and looked at Shen Running, clearly not quite understanding what this other idea was. When we go to college, we are all adults and can have things to think about outside of studying. Shen Ruoning lowered her head slightly, her palms sweating with nervousness. No matter how big a competition she participates in on weekdays, she won't be afraid, only facing Fu Yanshu. Perhaps the emotions during adolescence are like this, shy yet with a sense of unease. Fear of failure in confession, and fear that not confessing will leave regrets. She also knew that there were people about to take the college entrance examination, and it was obviously uncomfortable to do such a thing at this time. However, the fact that this matter was stuck in her heart really made her uncomfortable. Today is not a good time either, it's just a missed opportunity, and she won't have the courage to bring it up again in the future. Shen Running always said that if Fu Yanshu still doesn't understand, he's probably pretending to be foolish. He thought for a moment and responded seriously to Shen Running's words, I don't have any other plans at the moment. For me, the college entrance examination is the most important thing now. There aren't many opportunities to choose in life, and I don't want to leave any regrets. Shen Running also understood, and Fu Yanshu politely declined her. What about Gu Zhi? You are calm and composed towards everyone, except for Gu Zhi. Will she be your exception? Upon hearing this, Fu Yanshu fell silent for an instant. I have known Gu Zhi for a long time, and our relationship is nothing more than a friendship of classmates, he said. Shen Running looked at Fu Yanshu's profile, still looking calm and composed as before, but the emotions in his eyes still leaked his thoughts. Perhaps even Fu Yanshu didn't notice, his gaze at him was the same as hers. However, Shen Running has no intention of telling Fu Yanshu. She stood up, tidied up her wrinkled skirt that had been sitting for a long time, proudly holding her head high, and regained her usual confident appearance. Fu Yanshu, I won't keep losing to you. Let's make another bet, and I will get into the university I want to go to as I wish. I hope you do the same. Shen Running, thank you. Thank you for liking it. Thank you early. When I get into a university, today's matter will have to start over again. Fu Yanshu has no ideas at the moment, there will always be some in the future. She still has a chance, not to be considered a loss. Fu Yanshu laughed heartily and refused to accept defeat, but he looked very much like someone else. Fu Yanshu, I caught the hermit crab. Not far away, Gu Zhi ran towards him with joy, holding something in his hands. Fu Yanshu's temples twitched and he closed his eyes, feeling like he was in big trouble again. With a scream, Gu Zhi was dragged down by his own character, fell and ate dog shit, and the hermit crab in his hand also ran away. I finally caught it. Sob, Gu Zhi still lay on the ground and couldn't get up, grabbing a handful of sand with both hands, crying bitterly. Fu Yanshu walked over and saw that Gu Zhi didn't fall anywhere. He smiled and couldn't help but say, you don't need to be so polite. Get up. Gu Zhi reached out and looked up with a pitiful flat mouth. Fu Yanshu, give me a hand. Fu Yanshu sighed, slightly bent down, and helplessly reached out his hand. Chapter 7. New Year's Eve. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After packing up his things and preparing to go back, Gu Zhi suddenly remembered something and asked Song Xian, are you still celebrating the Chinese New Year abroad this year? Song Xian's parents were born and raised in a city. Originally, the development momentum in a city was even stronger than that of the Gu and Lu families. However, a few years ago, Song Xian's mother fell seriously ill, and his father gradually shifted the focus of the company overseas with her treatment abroad. In the past 2 years, the number of times he returned to a city has been decreasing. If it weren't for Song Xian's insistence on staying here and saying that he would have finished high school here, he might have gone abroad with his parents early in the morning. What's going on? Gu Zhi smiled mysteriously and flipped over the balcony back home. After half a meeting, he came back with a bag. If you're not here for the Chinese New Year, I'll give you the New Year gift in advance. Pretending to be mysterious, what good thing can you give me, you little bastard? Ah. Fortunately, Gu Zhi had foresight and covered her ears in advance. Otherwise, at the volume of Song Xian's ghostly roar, her eardrums would have been specified to burst. The signature photo of X band, and the 11-year commemorative badge that I'm missing. Song Xian looked at the badge again and again, still unable to believe how quickly his wish was fulfilled. The band X has 6 commemorative badges in total. The 11-year-old version happened to be sold when his mother had an accident. At that time, not to mention buying commemorative badges, he didn't even know what it tasted like to eat. Later, his mother recovered, and he went to look for it again, but he could not find it again. A few months ago, someone was bidding on the dark web, and it was only after he offered 10 times the price that he finally convinced the other party to agree to sell it to him. However, before he could be happy for a while, the person regretted not selling it again. Unexpectedly, he managed to gather all 6 badges in the end. Putting the last badge into the glass cabinet, Song Xian admired it for a while before being willing to leave. He patted Gu Zhi's shoulder in admiration and said, "Sure, pig. I entrusted so many things that I couldn't find, but you found them. How did you find them?" "It was given by Lu Yu." Speaking of the origin of the badge, Gu Zhi really didn't want to say. Lu Yu. Song Xian almost choked to death with his saliva. He grabbed Gu Zhi and spun several times like a spinning top before asking in horror, "That guy Lu Yu doesn't have such a good heart. Piggy, won't you sacrifice your appearance for me? What are you thinking? Lu Yu disliked me a bit, but he didn't have any thoughts about me." Gu Zhi rolled his eyes and raised his hand to flick on Song Xian's forehead. "What conditions? What did Lu Yu ask you to do?" "He didn't say anything, just let me owe him a favor." Sleeping trough. The kindness owed to Lu Yu is even more terrifying than the money owed to him. "Pig, I don't want this badge. Please return it quickly." As Song Xian spoke, he was about to take out his badge, but Gu Zhi stopped him and said, "Lu Yu said, it must be something I can do and am willing to do." Do you believe what Lu Yu said? Have you not been deceived enough by him in elementary and middle school? Thinking of those past events, Song Xian is still itching with anger. Lu Yu is 1 year older than them. When they were young, due to the competition in their family's business, Lu Yu and Gu Zhi were also mortal enemies. Lu Yu relied on himself to be bigger than Gu Zhi. In the past, wherever Lu Yu was, Gu Zhi would definitely be bullied. If I don't want to repay him with this favor, what can he do to force me? I've taken it all back, don't worry about him. She and Lu Yu are not children anymore, how can they still remember those past memories? After thinking for a while, Song Xian felt something was wrong again. Do you still have contact with Lu Yu? After junior high school, Gu Zhi and Lu Yu were not in the same school. Later, Lu Yu went to see university, and they didn't even have a chance to meet. How did they meet? I met him at a cake shop a few days ago. He came back for the Chinese New Year and just talked a few words. Although his personality is still so annoying, he is not that big of a person and still argues with me, a high school student. I don't know if the two haven't seen each other for too long, but I always feel that Lu Yu has changed quite a bit compared to before. Anyway, you don't have much contact with Lu Yu. That guy is full of bad water. Yes, you can rest assured to celebrate the Chinese New Year with your uncle and aunt. By the way, you can get a big red envelope for me. As usual, one person will receive half of it when you come back. Thinking of Song Xian's mother's big red envelope, Gu Zhi was instantly happy. Song Xian showed great compassion and said, "If you give me such a big gift, my mother's red envelope won't be distributed to you this year." Yo! So generous. Can you give me all the red envelopes that the old man gave you? Seeing Song Xian in a good mood today, Gu Zhi's little plan instantly made a sound. Are you falling into the money trap? You don't know, the old man collects red envelopes for me every year, and only your mother's and the old man's envelopes belong to me. I'm so poor. Song Xian hesitated for a moment before agreeing. I've given it to you for just 1 year. I love you. Gu Zhi continued to shoot out love, and Song Xian trembled with goosebumps all over his body, running fast with his arms in his arms. Dad wishes you a happy new year in advance. Here is the red envelope for this year. Before leaving, Gu Yi handed the wrapped red envelope to Gu Zhi in advance. Thank you, Dad. I wish Dad good health, all the best, and abundant wealth this year. Holding the heavy red envelope, Gu Zhi suddenly laughed so hard that he couldn't even close his mouth, and didn't forget to give Gu Yi a big kiss on the face. On New Year's Eve in previous years, Gu Zhi stayed at home to have a New Year's Eve dinner with Gu Yi, and then the two of them counted down the new year together. However, this year is quite an exception. Gu Yi has something to do with the company and asked her to find the program on her own. In the morning, the two of them had a small argument over this matter, but it was because Gu Zhi took a big red envelope and arranged for someone to count down the new year together. The anger had long dissipated. Play and don't come home too late, Gu Yi touched Gu Zhi's head and repeatedly reminded him. Got it, do you have anything to talk to Uncle Lu about? You've told me several times, I remember. That Dad's gone. Gu Yi waved his hand and went out. As soon as Gu Yi left, Gu Zhi quickly ran upstairs to change clothes. After her last homestay trip, she also got to know Lin Shi and a few others a lot, and later built a group. She joined in as soon as she heard them say they were going to Times Square to count down the new year together. The friends in the group have arrived at the agreed location one by one, and they are all urging their attention. Gu Zhi opened the group chat and posted a sentence. I'm only going out now, it's probably going to be a while, you guys play first. Qi Ming's first reply. Song Xian is not here, and Gu Zhizhen is really slow in doing anything. Song Xian didn't know what breed of dog it was, but upon smelling it, it popped up. That's right, Piggy is a famous late king. You better not wait for her, otherwise this year should be over. Gu Zhi. If you're abroad, just spend time with your parents and don't worry about me. After turning off the phone screen, Gu put on his shoes and left. Due to New Year's Eve, many shops around are organizing activities. For pedestrian safety, several roads are restricted or cars are not allowed to pass directly. Uncle Lu took Gu Zhi to the vicinity of Times Square and stopped over. When you can go back, just call me and I'll come here to pick you up. No need, Uncle Lu. I can take a taxi. During the Chinese New Year, you can go home and spend time with your family. I'll go back after counting down, it won't be too late. Thank you for taking care of Uncle Lu this year, and I wish Uncle Lu a healthy and prosperous New Year for his whole family. All the best. Chapter 8. Changes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Zhi arrived at the school early in the morning, and upon entering, he noticed that the atmosphere in the class was not quite right. His classmates were all gathered together, whispering something in secret. Have you all heard about someone jumping off a building in Donghu community? Of course I've heard about such a big thing. It seems like a man who somehow jumped down, and I don't know if he's dead or not. Don't you know yet? The person who jumped off the building was Fu Yanshu's father. He heard it was a loss of public funds and was about to face imprisonment. He couldn't accept it before jumping off the building. Hey! Fu Yanshu didn't come, is this really true? Upon hearing what a few people were saying, Gu Zhi rushed over angrily and scolded, Fu Yanshu didn't come, so you just arranged him like this. Are you idle and doing nothing? One of the girls was dissatisfied with Gu Zhi's attitude and retorted, why did we just arrange for him? My mother teaches at the same school as Fu Yanshu's mother, and even she said that. How could there be a mistake? And Fu Yanshu does indeed live in Donghu community, isn't that what you know best? Working together in the same school is still so unethical. What else is your mother doing as a teacher? You can tell at a glance if she can't teach her students well. Gu, you ate shit early in the morning. Your mouth smells so bad. My mother is so wicked, to be honest, please explain it to me clearly. When asked about her parents, the girl immediately became dissatisfied and pushed Gu. As an educator, not only did you not restrain yourself, but you also talked about others' gossip everywhere. Isn't this immoral? Gu Zhi sneered and glanced at the girl, then said, and you, if you can't talk to others, then you move around without tutoring. Gu Zhi, are you just looking for trouble? Fu Yanshu and his family have problems, and you don't want anyone to talk about it yet. The love brain is just the love brain, with no brain at all. Wang Yuding, please say one more thing, be careful, I'll spank you. How dare you? Try and see if I dare. As they were about to start a fight, Song Xian quickly ran over and grabbed Gu Zhi, persuading him, Gu Zhi, you haven't figured things out yet, so don't make trouble here. Am I causing trouble? It's just that they have a bad mouth. Right, they have bad mouths. Song Xian responded perfunctorily twice and dragged Gu back to his seat. Class time is approaching, please go back and sit down quickly, otherwise the homeroom teacher will be angry. Song Xian, you're not even helping me. Gu Zhi was furious and kicked Song Xian. Song Xian covered his calf and shouted, I'm not helping you yet. Gu Zhi, if I don't help you, you'll all start fighting. This is only the first day of school, and you want to see your parents again, right? Gu Zhi choked for a moment, unable to say a rebuttal. Alright, if you're really worried, I'll accompany you to the Fu Yan bookstore after school to take a look. Gu nodded before saying anything more. Throughout the day today, no matter where Gu Zhi went, she could hear someone discussing the jumping off a building in Donghu community at school, which caused her to frequently lose focus in class and even got scolded by the history teacher. After finally enduring until school was over, Gu Zhi even confiscated his belongings and hurriedly ran to Fu Yan's calligrapher's house. She knocked on the door for a long time, but there seemed to be no one inside. Gu Zhi sat at the door waiting for a long time, but in the end, Song Xian couldn't bear to see her and dragged her back with him. For several days afterwards, Gu Zhi came every day, but without exception, they were all just waiting for one. Today, she knocked on the door again, thinking it was nothing but a retired old lady on the same floor couldn't help but walk out and said to her, "No need to knock." There should be no one in his house when something big happened in the opposite room. Seeing the neighbor across from Fu Yan's calligrapher, Gu Zhi thought she would know something and urgently asked, "Grandma, do you know what happened to Fu Yan's calligrapher?" Thinking of what had happened in the opposite house, the old lady couldn't help but shake her head regretfully. "What exactly happened?" "I didn't have a chance to discuss anything behind their backs, so I knew Mr. Su had jumped off the building." "Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Su are such good people, why can't they think so hard? I heard that Mr. Su jumped off the roof, more than 10 floors high. If it weren't for the rain shelter cushioning, he would have been weak at the time. Fortunately. But it's not a good thing. Yesterday, I happened to meet his child who came back to pack things. I heard that the situation is very bad now, and I don't know if I can get through it. May I ask if you know which hospital Uncle Su lives in?" Upon hearing these things, Gu Zhi's chest was blocked and his voice couldn't help but choke. How can Fu Yan, the calligrapher, withstand such a big incident alone? It seems that Ankang Hospital. Gu Zhidao thanked him and hurried to Ankang Hospital. The people in the hospital were all impressed by this matter, so when they heard that Gu Zhilai was looking for this family, they directly told her the ward number. Before going to the ward, Gu Zhi went to the attending doctor to understand some information. As rumored outside, although Su Ningyuan did not die, he was also seriously injured and unconscious. He jumped down from the 10th floor and was supposed to be missing at the time. Fortunately, the rain shelter protruding from the 7th floor eased for a while, saving his life. However, on the day of admission, several critical illness notices were issued, and although they were all rescued in the end, whether they survived or not still depends on these few days. Gu Zhi stood at the entrance of the ward and looked through the glass on the door. He saw Fu Yanshu's foster mother guarding the side of the hospital bed, exhausted and completely different from when she first saw her. "What are you doing here?" Suddenly, the voice of Fu Yanshu came from behind, and Gu was startled and instinctively let out a cry. She quickly covered her mouth and turned to look at Fu Yanshu. However, after half a month of not seeing each other, Fu Yanshu lost a big circle of weight and looked visibly decadent, especially his eyes, which were lifeless and filled with a deep sense of fatigue. The dark blue under his eyes showed his recent rest. Gu Zhi extended his hand and slowly withdrew it, then timidly asked, "Fu Yanshu, are you okay?" "It's okay, you have a heart," Fu Yanshu replied with a tone of indifference and estrangement. "The director of this hospital is very familiar with my father. If you need any help, you can tell me. I will definitely help if I can." She called the old man just now, but it seems that she hasn't been able to help at the moment. "No need. You go back, we can handle our family matters ourselves." "Fu Yanshu, I'm very worried about you." "I said it's okay, don't you understand?" Fu Yanshu growled in annoyance, and when he saw Gu Zhi's injured gaze, he couldn't bear to take a glance. After taking a deep breath, he slowly said, "I know you're kind-hearted, but what happened to our family? How can you help?" "I'm sorry, I still have to go in to see uncle, so I won't see you off." Without further attention, Fu Yanshu opened the door and entered the ward. Every day after that, Gu Zhidu came to the hospital to see Su Ningyuan. After half a month of treatment, Su Ningyuan's vital signs finally stabilized. However, the doctor also said that no one can estimate how long this situation will last, and the worst-case scenario is a lifelong coma, known as a vegetative person. Gu Yi came in and saw Wenli carrying a large basin of water to pour. She quickly ran over to take it and said, "Auntie, I'll help you." Chapter 9. Graduation. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. I always thought time was slow, 3 years in high school were long, but on the day it ended, I realized that even the longest time was just a snap of my finger. We graduated. The deafening screams drowned out one after another, and the students threw their test papers into the hallway outside the classroom. The flying test papers in the sky, like endless snowflakes, instantly covered the gray cement floor. Gu Zhi suddenly turned red in the eyes. They are finally graduating, are you crying now? TSK, we really have a glass heart. Song Cyan pressed Gu Zhi's head, lifted his clothes in disgust, and wiped her face twice. If it were on weekdays, Gu Zhigao would have to give Song Cyan 2 punches, but today. Forget it. Why haven't you seen Fu Yanshu? Gu Zhi glanced in the classroom but didn't see the person behind Fu Yanshu. Fu Yanshu, go to the radio station. Qi Ming had not finished speaking, and Gu Zhi's figure had disappeared. The college entrance examination is over, and you haven't received your graduation certificate yet. Whoever lost the test paper, who can go down and pick it up for me? No running in the hallway, no matter what. The principal's angry roar came from behind, and Gu turned around to take a look, running faster. In the broadcasting room, as soon as Fu Yanshu sat down, Gu Zhi suddenly burst in. Fu Yanshu, I have something to ask you. It's not convenient right now, I'll wait. Gu couldn't wait any longer and pulled Fu Yanshu up from his chair. Do you have an answer to the question I asked you last time? Fu Yanshu was a bit confused when asked and couldn't react for a moment. He frowned and said, what? Gu Zhishan took a deep breath and said, I was in the infirmary asking you, do you like me? Gu Zhi, you. Suddenly, Fu Yanshu was not prepared at all, so he opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. I know my brain may not be as smart as yours, and I may not be the type you like, but I really like you. As you said, I hate those who say they can't do it without putting in effort. I have always remembered it, so for over a year, I have been working hard every day. I dare not slack off in my studies or let myself relax. I want to catch up with your footsteps and make you feel that I am not that stupid. But my abilities are so strong, even if I try hard, I cannot reach your height. Gu Zhi's words were very moving, and Fu Yanshu also looked at her deeply. He knew that Gu Zhi liked him, but he never thought that Gu Zhi would achieve this level for him. Fu Yanshu, from junior high school to high school, I really liked you for many years. Can you give me a chance to try to like me? Before Fu Yanshu could speak, the internal telephone in the broadcasting room rang. The piercing bell suddenly broke the ambiguous atmosphere in the broadcasting room, and Fu Yanshu regained his senses and pressed the answer button. Gu Zhi, come to the principal's office immediately. Listening to the principal's almost cerebral hemorrhage roar, Gu Zhi's mind instantly became clear. She looked bewildered. Why is the principal so angry? What did she do wrong again? Fu Yanshu's mouth twitched before remembering what he was about to do earlier. He pointed to the control keyboard behind Gu, feeling sorry for Gu for the first time in his life. Looking at the red light button playing, Gu Zhi was numb on the spot, and the despair she had never experienced in the past 17 years of her life hit her brain. Confessing to Fu Yanshu in front of all the teachers and students in the school, what did she do if there were a hole in the broadcasting room at this moment? She would definitely be the first to dive in and never want to come out again in her lifetime. In the principal's office, the principal stood in front of Gu Zhi, his face burning with anger. Gu Zhi, can't you let me rest for a day? You've been causing trouble for me since the first day I transferred, and it's almost graduation. You've been making such a big fuss for me. What age are you? Reading is currently your most important thing, you need to correct your thinking. Gu Zhi always lowered his head, being trained not to dare say a word. Not to mention that the principal is angry, she wants to die herself now. But when she looked back, she felt like it wasn't that bad. Anyway, she was about to graduate, and losing face was only a matter of a few days. After waiting for these few days, she ran away, and any further embarrassment had nothing to do with him. Upon this thought, Gu Zhi suddenly felt that the already dark world had brightened up again. Although you did something wrong, I still admire your courage. Upon hearing this, Gu Zhi slowly lifted his head. Did she hear it right? Did she receive praise from the principal? Looking at Gu Zhi's gradually proud expression, the principal glared at her and angrily scolded, I didn't say you did the right thing, don't misunderstand. I mean, your drive to work towards your goal is great, but if you could change your goal, it would definitely be better. Gu Zhi retorted softly, Fu Yanshu is my motivation. If I change my goals, then I won't be able to work hard at all. The principal's anger, which had gone down a bit earlier, suddenly came up again. How many steps have you taken in your life? Have you ever seen the outside world? Considering that the path of life is long, when you pick a flower, you think it is the best in the world because you have never seen a flower that blooms better than it. Fu Yanshu is the best. I didn't say that Fu Yanshu is bad, I just said that the best may not necessarily be suitable for you. The principal, with his hands behind his back and a resentful glance at him, muttered softly, I've been chasing him for so many years but I haven't found him. You don't think it's embarrassing? Principal, you just said you need to correct your thinking, study hard, and strive to change bad habits as soon as possible. You reminded me. Take a big mistake. Give a verbal warning, a 2,000-word review letter, and hand it over to your homeroom teacher after school today. Gu Zhi cried and angrily slapped his two big-eared photons. Look at her broken mouth, showing off her desire for words. Gu Zhi returned from the principal's office and everyone was writing their student records. She looked at the large pile of student records on the table, her scalp tingling. Classmate record. Thinking of this, Gu Zhi became energetic again. Gu Yi sat on the Qi Ming chair and successfully pushed the person away, then turned around and eagerly looked at Fu Yanshu. Fu Yanshu, help me write a classmate record, he said. Fu Yanshu was reading a copy of the Book of Changes, but without even lifting his head, he refused, I won't write it. Gu Zhi reached out and covered Fu Yanshu's book, starting to pounce, I don't care. If you don't write for me today, I'll go wherever you go. I'm so annoyed that you write for me. Where are we going to the bathroom? I can go to the bathroom. I can also go to the bathroom. At most, she would guard at the door. If she didn't go in, she wouldn't believe that Fu Yanshu could still hide inside. It's pretty good, it's getting more and more shameless. I have confessed to you in front of all the teachers and students in the school, how can I still have face? Gu Zhi also went all out and softened when he couldn't, starting to sell miserably. Fu Yanshu, I was just scolded severely by the principal at the principal's place. He not only verbally warned me, but also asked me to write a self-criticism letter. 2,000 words, 2,000 words. For your sake, how many self-criticism letters have I written this year? To exaggerate, my literary talent for writing self-criticism letters can now be published. Chapter 10. Regrets. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Looking at the college entrance examination scores on the computer screen, Gu Zhi's mood became extremely complicated. Although it was expected, there was still a slight sense of disappointment when the answer was truly obtained. Pig, have you checked your college entrance exam scores? Song Xian appeared from somewhere and looked at Gu Zhi's silly appearance. He also leaned over to the computer screen and exclaimed excitedly, you can pig, this year's hard work has not been in vain. This score. Gu Lao too is so impressed. Gu Zhi got up from the chair and fell onto the bed in a big shape. He said lazily, what's good about it? I can't go, it's just empty talk. Song Xian said with a wicked tone, don't be discouraged. Maybe Fu Yanshu did not perform well in the exam and didn't pass. Fu Yanshu's admission score is much higher than A's, unless he doesn't go, it's impossible. She had already called and asked Fu Yanshu about it. Fu Yanshu's ideal was to go to a university, and now he should have fulfilled his wish. If we can't go to a university, let's go study abroad. Song Xian moved Gu Zhi's leg and sat on the bed. Don't you like the local culture of country B? Let's go there. Without Fu Yanshu, I don't want to go anywhere, Gu Zhi said with a mournful expression. Your score is good enough to attend several good universities in China, but obviously studying abroad is more advantageous for you. Considering that life is your own, you can't just joke about your future just for the sake of being a scholar, can you? This is the first time Song Xian has spoken to Gu Zhi so seriously. Gu Zhi knows how much he has read Fu Yanshu. It's because he knows that he doesn't want to worry about making the wrong decision due to momentary impulses. Gu Zhi said angrily, didn't you say that I can't succeed in my studies and will wait to inherit the Gu family from the old man in the future? I will wait to inherit the Gu family from the old man and become a useless wealthy second generation. That's all just a joke. If you don't work hard and Gu's company gives it to you, you won't be able to hold on. This is the big truth. Gu Zhi is such a big company. If Gu Zhi were a bit dull, those shareholders would be able to devour her alive. Gu Zhi's words were naturally angry, but she was unwilling to leave Fu Yanshu and go abroad. Knowing that Gu Zhi was in a bad mood, Song Xian didn't say much and comforted him by pressing Gu Zhi's head before getting up and going home. When Gu Yi returned, the two father and daughter had another argument about whether to go abroad or not. Gu Zhi was angry and locked himself in the room, and he didn't even come out to eat at night. Due to this issue, Gu Zhi and Gu Yi argued several times before escalating into a cold war. They met directly but didn't see each other, and this situation persisted until Gu Zhi's birthday. Gu Yi was having breakfast early in the morning when the nanny suddenly brought a beautifully packaged gift over and said, "Miss, this is a birthday gift from the gentleman." Gu Zhi glanced at Gu Yi sitting across from him, but didn't answer. He said indifferently, "Thank him for me, I don't want his gift." If you don't admit your child's temper, even a small thing can make you angry for half a month. Gu Yi couldn't help but retort. Speaking of Gu Zhi's childish temper, Gu Zhi really started throwing tantrums. If you let me go abroad again, I will not only be angry for half a month, but also for a lifetime. Thinking about Gu Zhi's birthday today, he didn't want her to be unhappy early in the morning. Gu Yi couldn't bear it, but still didn't say anything. Open the gift quickly and take a look. If you don't like Daddy bidding you farewell. Gu Zhi remained silent, obviously still angry. Gu Yi said again, "I started preparing this gift 3 months in advance. Don't you think about it? I'm already quite old, is it easy to make my daughter happy?" Gu Zhi was a bit moved, and she had already reached the point of selling tragically. No matter how angry she was, it seemed like she couldn't justify it. Let's take a look. Gu opened the gift packaging and found a custom-made white satin evening dress, as well as a pair of bare-colored slim heels adorned with diamonds. This is your first pair of high heels as an adult. I learned how to make them, but the craftsmanship is not very good. Several diamonds are set askew. Gu Yi awkwardly touched his nose, his eyes flickering. After all, he is not in this industry, and coupled with his poor eyesight, this is the best he can do. Thank you, Dad. Thinking that Gu Yi would put in a lot of effort to do these things for her, the anger in Gu Zhi's heart had long dissipated. Gu Yi was so nervous and even stuttered when speaking. "Hi. Do you like it?" "I like it, this is the best gift I have ever received in my life." Seeing the injury on Gu Yi's finger by chance, Gu Zhi's tears couldn't help but fall with a patter. Seeing Gu Zhi suddenly cry, Gu Yi became even more nervous. He walked up to Gu Zhi and clumsily wiped her tears with a tissue, while still jokingly saying, "Just say you're childish. Even when you're an adult, you still love to cry. Didn't you say I'm your little baby? As an adult, I'm not your little baby anymore." Gu Zhi chuckled a few times and said helplessly but with a spoiled tone, yes, yes, you will always be Daddy's little treasure. After half a meeting, Gu Zhi couldn't help but say, old man, I feel a bit nauseous. Coincidentally, so am I. Gu got into the car, and Song Sion looked at the plaid suit dress on her body. He raised his eyebrows and said, where's the dress that Mr. Gu gave you? Why don't you wear it? I'm having a birthday party, dressed so grandly, who are you trying to scare to death? Gu Zhi fastened his seat belt and gestured for Uncle Lu to drive. The birthday party was held in a private restaurant, where Gu Zhi and Gu Zhi had visited several times before. The environment was quiet, not too high profile, but also allowed visitors to have a more relaxed time. Because there were a lot of people invited, Gu Zhi was afraid of disturbing others, so he directly booked the venue. Gu Zhi and Song Sion arrived early and had not seen any other classmates when they arrived. Song Sion took out a long box from somewhere and poked Gu, saying, a birthday gift. Song Sion, why didn't you give it to me when you were at home? I'll take it back later, Gu Zhi murmured, but he was still happy in his heart. This guy prepares gifts for her every year, although they are not very impressive, this kind of care is quite precious. Song Sion gave a platinum necklace and the pendant was a very cute rabbit. At first glance, she immediately fell in love with the girl's heart. Not bad. The taste of the gifts I gave this year has improved a lot, which really impressed me. Come, help me carry it. Gu Zhi put the necklace in Song Sion's hand, then turned around and picked up his hair. Song Sion pursed his lips, although he was praised, he looked unhappy and said, don't you like the gift I gave you before? To be honest, except for the one handled by the Pirate King, everything else can only be expressed with my gratitude. Is it nice? Is it nice? Gu Zhi took a photo from the plate on the decoration and really liked this gift. Song Sion looked at Gu Zhi's happy expression and casually replied, it looks good. When Lin Xin Chi Ming entered, they happened to see the scene of Song Sion wearing a necklace for Gu Zhi. They remained silent and stood at the door, watching.